Okay, this is part 2 of my interview with Barb. Barb, in the first part we were talking about how you contracted epilepsy. You said that you had it since you were 35. Do they know what caused it?
No, they're completely confused. I mean, they have no idea at all. They've never been able to figure out what caused my epilepsy.
Now, is that just unique to you, or does or is there a defined cause for other types of epilepsy?
There is a list of sort of defined causes for epilepsy, but there is also unique categories in it as well. I mean, we have juvenile epilepsy, so there's a group of kids, that may have it and may outgrow it. And then there's people like me that may all of a sudden have adult onset epilepsy. Most of the time, though, stuff like that, when that happens, is caused by maybe like a head injury, an infection, high fever.
Now, you had a brain infection as a child. Is that true?
I didn't have a brain infection as a child. I had a brain infection actually after a procedure that was done for my epilepsy. But I did have, in 1973, I think it was, I had a leaky tear duct, so I had a craniotomy done. And so I had some type of investigative surgery where they opened me up because I have a scar from ear to ear. And my mom, unfortunately, doesn't. She remembers bits and pieces of it, but she can't give me a whole lot of information. And I tried to track down the doctor who did it, and he's no longer practicing, obviously. Basically, the only thing we did find is that when they did the surgery, there was a metal clip left in my brain.
And it's still there?
Yes, they can't remove it because the brain tissue, of course, is growing over it.
I see.
And nobody knows why why it was left in there, or things were a lot different back then. Obviously, the technology and as such, as opposed to now with brain surgery and head surgery and eye surgery. So, I myself, in my heart and my gut, I think that that's the cause, because we're not meant to have a metal clip left in our brain.
And also because the brain's basic function is electrical, and metal is an excellent conductor of electricity, do you think that could also be a contributing factor in not only your epilepsy, generally speaking, but the frequency and the severity of the seizures that you have?
I think it's quite possible. I've mentioned it to neurologists, and I've never gotten a no or a yes. I've gotten it's quite possible. I mean, and how couldn't it be? I mean, there's something foreign lodged in your brain, and anything that's in there, that's stuck in there, well, the neurons that are around that area aren't going to be able to fire properly. So if they can't fire properly, well, we know that a seizure, that's what a seizure is when neurons aren't firing properly. That's my best guess. I mean, the epilepsy clinic that I go to deals with special cases of epilepsy that are hard to control, or uncontrolled seizures. So I think a lot of the patients probably up there are in the same boat that I'm in, Also with my epilepsy, excuse me, what makes it a little unique is most cases of epilepsy, the source or the focal point of the seizures comes from one certain location of the brain. With me, I have 2 focal points. So I have seizures coming from my temporal lobe as well as my frontal lobe. So I can have seizures coming from here and from here at any given time, or mixing back and forth, or jumping around. So that's why my seizures have never been able to be controlled, and basically they won't ever be controlled, because unless they were able to remove both those parts, you can take out one part, but the other part that's misfiring is still going to be there. So there's still always going to be some seizure activity going on with me. I hope that makes sense.
I'm sure people will be able to follow that, dear.
It's confusing.
It is. But you're the one that has to live with it, so you're the one that has the unique insights into this. The whole purpose of this was to literally raise awareness, because I don't think people get it, just how debilitating it is, and what a dramatic change in your life and your lifestyle it's forced you to undergo. You mentioned before in the first part that you ran your own daycare business, and that you had your degree in early childhood education, or ECE as it's called. When you were diagnosed with epilepsy, how did it change your life, as far as, your lifestyle, employment, things like that? What were the changes that you were forced to undergo?
Well, in the very beginning, I had no idea how big of a change it was going to be, or what I was going to have to undertake. But I didn't want to. I was passionate and very, very happy with working with the kids, and I didn't want to give that up. So what I did, first off, was I hired someone to work there with me, so that there was someone with me there all the time in case I did have a seizure. Someone was there to be with the kids, and that worked great. That worked great for a while, until it got too expensive. I just couldn't afford to run the business and pay another employee. So it was really sad for me, but I just had to give it up.
But you weren't actually, nobody from the government said, you have epilepsy, you can't, run your own daycare. What if you have a seizure? Something like that.
No.
They didn't legislate you out of business, I guess is what I'm saying.
I just knew that I had to have someone there. I mean, my first instinct was, well, I can't do it. And then I thought, well, if I have someone there with me, as long as there's another adult there, a responsible adult, obviously, which she was, and all the parents were good with it. I just had 5 kids, so all the parents were thrilled, because they loved me, and they loved the kids loved being there, and they loved being with me, and I loved them. Everything was, it was great. So I, of course, discussed it with the parents and said, this is what's going on with me. I got 2 choices here. I'm going to have to either close the business down because of what's happening with my health, or I can hire someone to work along with me. Not to do what I'm doing with your kids, but to just be here. And they thought it was awesome, because, they were kind of getting another helper in the classroom as well. And the kids liked it too. So it was a really good situation for a long time. And it was unfortunate when I had to let that go.
Did you have a driver's license before you had epilepsy?
Yes.
Do you still have one now?
No.
Now that was taken away from you.
It wasn't I never